Welcome to Fireside Nets with Spen and Nick, brought to you by Empire Sports Media. We are your hosts, Spen and Nick, and not the best day to be talking Nets basketball. For starters, it's really cold and gross outside. It's been cold and gross all weekend leading into Monday. Today is Martin Luther King Day. If you're listening
On the
on
East
Monday,
Coast, on the East Coast specifically. I bet it's nice on the West Coast.
yeah, I'm sure we have a lot of listeners from California. If you're listening tomorrow, hope you had a great weekend. Tomorrow being Tuesday, if you're listening on Tuesday. But yeah, shitty weather, and then on top of that, not so great basketball. So the Nets had the 3:30 game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The game was in Cleveland. Obviously, no Kevin Durant for this one. No Nick Claxton. LaMarcus Aldridge was back in action. You did have Kyrie Irving for this game. You did have James Harden.
Still no Joe Harris.
Still no Joe Harris. Wasn't enough. Wasn't enough to beat the Cleveland Cavaliers 114-107. The Nets lost this game, and they lost it in a number of ways. I mean, the first quarter, they came out, they put up 31 points, and it seemed like Cleveland matched every single big basket. And you can tell from the start that, the last time we played Cleveland, we did not see Evan Mobley. I don't even think Jared Allen played the last game, but it was still a close game. And then in this one, those two guys accounted for 26 points. Darius Garland making a case for All-Star status this year. 22 points for him, 12 assists, some big plays in that fourth quarter, Nick, that we'll get to. So then the second quarter starts. Cleveland essentially beat the crap out of us in that quarter, 35-28. The third quarter, the Nets responded. Kyrie had a big third quarter, a few buckets for him. We beat the Cavs 29-22. And then we'll get into it because this game just ended. But the fourth quarter, Cleveland beat us 27-19. The Nets did not make shots down the stretch. The defense was spotty, to say the least. What do you see there, Nick, in that fourth quarter that essentially lost us this game?
Well, first of all, I just want to pay respect to MLK Day. That's why we have the 3-day weekend.
Well, let's pay respect to Martin Luther King Jr. in general.
And the day.
Sure.
As a whole.
Yeah.
So this was honestly just a back and forth high offensive scoring game through the first three. Both teams, if you look at the stat line, shot around 50%. Cleveland 52. We were just around 49.5. So just a good offensive efficiency game all around. Defense was kind of lacking on both sides. Really no stats jump out. Everything's pretty even rebounding wise, 40-35 Cavs. We won in assists 27-26 and just around 15 turnovers each. Really all this game came down to was who was going to score down the stretch. Everybody had waves throughout the entire game of going on runs, especially Garland, especially Harden and Kyrie, obviously, who finished at 22 and 27 respectively. Aldridge, 13, Kessler and Patty Mills, 11 each, and Sharp, 10. So a well-distributed game all around. Then you had guys for Cleveland who I've never heard of, like Dylan Windler and Brandon Goodwin, dropping 9 and 7, both hitting big shots down the stretch as well. So it was a really even game. I'll tell you why we lost, just missed opportunities with a couple minutes left. Aldridge missed 2 wide open layups. One rimmed out off the bank, and then he front rimmed on a 2-footer. The guy's almost 7 feet, and he hit the front rim on a 2-foot putback that would have cut it to 1 with a minute and a half left. They kept giving us the ball back. They kept missing. We kept getting it back with 3, down 2. Then we're down 3 with under a minute left, and James Harden passes the ball backcourt out of the reach of Kyrie, ends up with a dunk on the other end for Cleveland, pushes the game out of reach for us. So really this game was attainable every way throughout the fourth quarter. Harden was keeping us in it with some big shots. Irving was keeping us in it. Irving had a 3, 28, 30 seconds left that just literally hit every single part of the rim and came out. So it's a tough loss. Cleveland's on a 5-game win streak. They're now 27-18. We dropped to 27-16. So really only a couple games ahead of them. But Cleveland's had a good season. At the end of the day, could have won this game, went the other way. But I'm not going to attribute to anything other than not hitting some shots down in the clutch and the Cavs. Honestly, hustling after the ball more, finishing stronger, having more confidence in guys that you never even heard of having more confidence than some of our big names like Aldridge down the stretch.
The play that killed me was you're down 3, and we're not going to sit here and pile on LaMarcus Aldridge because at the end of the day, Aldridge is coming off a foot injury. He said that his right foot didn't feel back to normal, and he said that they'll keep an eye on it, but he thinks the more he plays, the better it'll feel, which is something you don't hear often. Like, hey, my foot hurts, but you know what? Let me just play on it, and it'll be fine in a few games. When
that's not an excuse, though.
No, it's not. When Aldridge lost Mobley on that play with about a minute left, I watched that replay over and over again. He looks at him and then looks at the ball, and Mobley walks behind Aldridge. Aldridge looks back at the three-point area where he thought Mobley was. Garland throws it to a wide-open Mobley. Mobley dunks it, puts the Cavs up 5, essentially seals the game.
Yeah, I got to give some credit to JB Bickerstaff and the Cavs team. Kevin Love.
Not specifically on that play, dude.
But they move off ball, every single one of them. They move really well. Kevin Love has some amazing passes. And this was without Rubio, who's arguably their best veteran leader and their best point guard and distributor. So Cavs have the longest win streak in the East right now. With that win, or with the win for the Cavs, loss for the Nets, we dropped to 3rd in the East. Tied 27-16 with the Miami Heat, who are in 2nd, 1 game behind the Chicago Bulls, who sit at number 1 at 27-14. And in our last 10, we're 4-6.
So it's funny. You're basically, your thought process is the Cavs are a good team. They're a rising team in the East. They have a lot of talent. They're a pretty complete team if you think about it. Even without Rubio, I mean, they have great point guard play, solid guard play. They have a dearth of big men with Markkanen, Allen, Mobley, and Kevin Love, and then you have some good wings in Osman and Okoro. But I want to focus on the Nets because this is a Nets podcast. We can give the Cavs all their flowers whenever we want. Not a great game for James Harden. Okay, 22-10. He was 10 of 15 from the line, 5 of 12 from the field. He can be better. I'm looking at the plus minus. Harden was a minus 18 in this one. Kyrie, with his 27 points, he was a plus 14. So there's got to be some reason for the discrepancy there. 4 turnovers for James Harden. And we'll get to some rumors and some things I saw after this, but it just bugs me because in a game like this, close game down the stretch, you should be, even without Kevin Durant, you should be able to rely on Kyrie Irving and James Harden to make the necessary plays to win this game, because at the end of the day, I do think both those players are better than Darius Garland. I truly feel that way. So that's the first thing I want to say. And, the thing that bothers me is you were talking about the Harden turnover where he passed it to Kyrie and it went out of bounds, correct?
No, it went backcourt and the Cavs picked it up and dunked it.
Okay.
To seal the game.
That shit is a lack of continuity between players. It just is. These guys have not shared the court a ton this year. This is Kyrie's 4th game back. I hate to say it, but we're going to get into this later in the podcast. The lack of continuity that hasn't really been there with the big 3, you can see it in games like this. You can see the
Kyrie
fact that
just came back. How can you expect him and Kyrie to just mold together? I don't think that's a great point.
What happened when they beat the Chicago Bulls in Chicago?
Yeah, they had a great. They had one great game.
My point is, because Kevin Durant isn't playing, it is hard for James Harden and Kyrie Irving to go out there and do the same things every night.
So you're blaming the Kevin Durant injury?
Nick. The big 3 have not played games together.
I understand that.
This is my point. So the lack of continuity hurts in games like this. It does.
Yes, but it sounds like you're saying it's surprising that there's a lack of continuity.
It's not surprising. It's frustrating.
I agree.
And you should also, in 2 superstars, be able to beat a good Cavs team, but they're still the 5th or 6th seed, right?
Also, the Cavs.
They were the 6th seed when this game started.
I think they're 4th now. I think they're 1 behind us.
Okay, but
I mean, yes, I agree with that. Cavs are in 4th. So Bulls, Heat, Nets, Cavs, Bucks. So I do agree with that, but I also think that's just a lack of strategy with a couple minutes left in the game. Why isn't Nash drawing up a play when we're down 3 for our best 3-point shooter this season, Patty Mills? Why are we just putting the ball in Harden and Kyrie's hands and saying take turns going to work? Now, I understand they're the 2 best players on the floor for both teams, but after a couple plays of them missing a jump shot, making the wrong pass. You're down 3 with a minute left. Call timeout, draw up a play for Patty Mills because Harden and Irving are going to draw a double. They might even both draw a double. Patty Mills will get a good look. He is our most consistent shooter on the team statistically this year. So my question is not only, yes, I understand there's a lack of continuity. If that's the case, if that chemistry isn't right yet, why aren't we drawing up something for somebody else instead of just giving the ball to one of our stars and saying, do what you got to do, especially down the stretch when they're going to get way too much attention?
So you would blame Steve Nash a little bit for this loss is what you're saying?
I'll blame everybody. You can't just point a finger at one person in a loss. I'll blame Harden for a stupid pass at the end. I'll blame Aldridge for a couple of missed dinkers. I'll blame the entire team for just bad communication on defense. The Cavs down the stretch had easy shots. I mean, Okoro at one point just took a step, and it was nice. It was a nice step in between Aldridge and Kyrie. I think Harden was down there too. And like all 3 of them got faked out by the same move, and then he had a wide open layup. I'll give Okoro some credit. He looked good. He's an athletic player, but listen, it was a combination of things, but I will pin some on Nash for not thinking outside the box, especially in a game like this against the Cleveland Cavaliers team that's clearly going to put all their attention on Harden and Irving.
Yeah, it's not just this loss that frustrates me. You know, we've basically gone loss, win, I think loss, win, or loss in our last like 5 or 6 games. We're going back and forth, back and forth. We've already dropped to 3rd in the East. Now the East is sort of anyone's to take over, really. I mean, Chicago's about to lose this game to Memphis, so they're going to fall, another game back. But
Memphis can't lose.
Milwaukee's right there to just take this conference, and they were being slept on a few weeks ago that they didn't have enough, and all of a sudden they're healthy and they look great. So it is frustrating. I'm not shocked that the Nets lost this game, but I am annoyed. This is a game that you're coming off of after a dominating win against the Pelicans, which we will get to. And, Cleveland's a team that, let's face it, Nick, the Nets have a lot of ties to. Our former franchise center starts for the Cleveland Cavaliers and Jared Allen. Kyrie Irving, one of the better players on our team, won a championship in Cleveland. A lot of boos for Kyrie today, which was surprising. There's just been a lot of history between us and the Cavs, and I'd like to think that in a way we're sort of big brother to them because we are a more experienced team. We are a better team. I wouldn't say we're deeper than the Cavs right now, but I do think talent-wise we're better. We're more top-heavy than them. Absolutely. It's frustrating to lose a game like this. Okay, I'm tired of Darius Garland, great player. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, great young big men. This Cavs team, fun to watch. I don't care. I want wins. I want the Nets to handle their business against teams that are under them and not as good as them. So I'm frustrated. This is annoying. And then the other thing I saw literally as I'm watching the game is, and I'm sorry, the last thing I'll say, thank God Steve Nash has given Deron Sharp and Kessler Edwards minutes, or at least an opportunity. Those 2 guys have started the last few games, and they've been good. I mean, Kessler Edwards, 4 of 8 from the field, 11 points. He was 3 of 6 from three-point range. Most of those came in the first half. He was pretty quiet in the second, but he's proven that he can really contribute to a team with James Harden and Kyrie Irving. He can hit the open shots. He moves well without the ball. I sort of look at Kessler Edwards and think of like a Channing Frye, but a lot more mobile and athletic. Like that's the kind
I think
of
of like a Corey Brewer, but a little more skilled. I like Kessler Edwards. I will say I saw Deron Sharp play, so I was at the game that we'll get to in a couple games.
Yeah.
I was at the game that we lost against.
But Sharp looked great against the Thunder.
Sharp looked okay in the last 2 games. I mean, we'll get to the Pelicans game where he had a double-double, but he just looks a step slow, especially today against a really young athletic Cavs team. Sure. He's like, for a big man, his footwork isn't great. You saw him get called for a travel where he shuffled his feet. Couple plays he was out of position. Listen, I'll cut him some slack. He's a rookie. He's doing well. He's putting up some numbers for a team that desperately needs numbers from a big man. There are times where he looks a little lost. Overall, he had one really nice block today where he stuffed Markin and then out of bounds. But yeah, I need more from Sharp. I'm happy with Edwards. I like David Duke. Cam Thomas is an offensive threat, but I don't want to get too excited about Deron Sharp. He has a lot of headway to make.
The thing I love about Sharp is his motor and his strength. So he doesn't have the athleticism that Claxton has, but his motor is high, which means he'll bang with dudes on the glass. He'll absolutely, for those 50-50 balls in the air, he'll fight with guys bigger than him. That's what I like about Sharp. I don't think that Claxton and Aldridge have that dog mentality. Let me tip the ball off the backboard back to myself. Let me fight for these balls. Sharp has that. that same rebounding mentality that Ed Davis had a few years. If Nets fans remember Ed Davis during his tenure here, I thought he was a really good backup center. Sharp possesses some of those rebounding qualities. So really like what Sharp and Edwards have given the Nets. Quiet game for Cam Thomas. He had 6 points. David Duke Jr. did not play tonight. And Sharp had 10 and 6. Kessler Edwards had 11. So Patty Mills, 11 points. He could have done a little bit more. But the thing I wanted to get to, Nick, is during the game, the Legion Hoops, the Twitter account, they tweeted at 4:23 p.m. developing. James Harden is open to relocating, fooling trade humors heading into the trade deadline. The 76ers have shown interest. So this is what I mean by I'm frustrated. You haven't been able to watch the big three play virtually at all in the last 2 seasons. I think they've played 16 games together. I think they're 13-3. All of a sudden I get this update while I'm watching a Nets loss that James Harden is open to relocating. I don't know if this is a bullshit report. I don't know if there's any merit to this, but what are your first thoughts when you hear that Harden would be open to a change of scenery, if it's true?
I think it's really bad timing. I'm not sure why he's saying that right now on the midst of a championship run. If once Durant gets healthy, and we'll get to his injury, I believe in 6 to 8 weeks. But it's just a stupid thing to say right now. It's just lowering.
Well, he's not saying it. That's a report. I don't know where the source is from. People seem to respect Legion Hoops. They're a legitimate account. They have 5.
I see it on Bleacher Report too.
Yeah, so it's out there. I mean, he hasn't said anything, but what bothers me is this isn't, the Nets team that fans expect to see in the playoffs. We do expect to get Kevin Durant back at full strength in 4 to 6 weeks, which was the initial report. So why now?
Well,
all of a sudden, yeah.
The extension of the quote is he was open to it, but he says, and I quote, this is according to Bleacher Report, "I don't plan on leaving this organization and the situation that we have. So my focus, honestly, is just focus on the season and then winning the championship. The contract and all that stuff will bear itself out, but my focus is going to be locked into this season." So
wait, he said that recently, or he said that at the beginning of the season?
Let's see when this article.
When is that quote from? Did you just find an article from like July?
Oh, look. No, I don't think so. I think it's pretty new.
It's pretty new?
So, listen, he shouldn't have ever said anything, I agree, or he shouldn't have even refer to it. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's something that you should get worked up about, distracted about. He's going to be locked in. He puts his heart into every game. So let's not get too ahead of ourselves and think there's something there. I'm more worried about the Joe Harris trade rumors to Cleveland, who we just played, of all people. That to you and me should be more of a concern than Harden, because before the trade deadline, Joe Harris gets moved. That's terrifying, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone.
You're okay with Joe Harris leaving?
Wait, that's out there that Joe Harris might leave? Is that what you just said? I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about Joe Harris's injury stuff.
No, I pay attention when I talk. I'm on Twitter. Steve Nash said Harris is traveling with the team, but there's no timetable on his return. Okay. Cleveland.com, according to Bleacher Report, Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com reported the Cavs' interest in Joe Harris Friday. If the Nets make Joe Harris available, and I'm not saying that they're going to, but if they do, the Cavs would be very interested. So
if you get the right return back, yeah, I'd be fine with that.
So what would that be? What would that look like?
I don't know what that would look like. Maybe Kevin Love, some picks, Okoro maybe. You can get like those two guys. I don't know what the money situation looks like in that regard. I don't value Joe Harris as much as other people value him. I don't think he's as essential to our team as people make it out to be. I think that if we were to enter a playoff series right now and Joe Harris is healthy and we have our team at full strength, I don't think he plays more than half the game. I don't think he plays in the fourth quarter. I understand he's one of the better knockdown three-point shooters in the league. I understand he helps space the floor out. Defensively, he's a liability. Offensively, he's pretty limited to just sort of hitting three-pointers, and occasionally he'll be able to hit the mid-range and make an okay play on offense. But that doesn't have me worried. What has me worried is Kevin Durant's injury. What has me worried is Kyrie Irving's part-time status and James Harden potentially being traded. And guess what, Nick? The one team that is extremely interested in James Harden are the 76ers. And they have a chance if they were to get James Harden with Joel Embiid, who is playing not like an MVP. Embiid has been, outside of Giannis and Durant, the best player in the East. He has been. He's been unstoppable this year. So yeah, I'm more worried that James Harden is open to relocating. And who's the guy out there in Philly? Daryl Morey is his old buddy, and they're just lurking. The Sixers are just lurking. You know, they haven't been playing the Ben Simmons situation as well as possible, because
I would take Ben Simmons.
The Nets aren't going to do that. See, that's the thing. I still trust Sean Marks. It's not
give me like Ben
Marks
Simmons and Seth Curry for Harden.
Well, no, but everyone in Philly hates Tobias Harris right now, and they hate Ben Simmons. So those are the guys that Morey's trying to get rid of, and I don't think Marks would bite on that trade. I don't think Marks is going to trade James Harden to a contender like Philly. But the possibility does worry me. The fact that the Nets are struggling, the fact that Harden, based on previous years and different situations, I don't know if he decides, hey, I'm willing to sort of stick out a not great situation in Brooklyn if he feels it's not great here. Because I don't know if that's the case yet. He's still playing with Kyrie. He still has a pretty solid team. But if you're not going to be able to play with Kevin Durant for a minute, I don't know. There's a lot going on with the Brooklyn Nets, and I think that Joe Harris is the least of our concerns.
That's a fair point. Let's see how it plays out. I don't want it to be one report of Harden and then we're getting too worked up. Harden's always been kind of a loose cannon and always open to anything, whether that's more money, whether that's a new superstar trio.
But I will give Harden credit. For years in Houston, no matter what they put around him, he was loyal. He stuck it out, and they always improved the roster. Whether it was getting Chris Paul, whether it was getting Russell Westbrook, whether it was trying Dwight Howard here, whether it was making Clint Capella into a real player. They had PJ Tucker for a few years. Like the Rockets, and that's the other thing that bothers me, Nick. I feel like the James Harden on the Rockets never lost games like these. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't remember him losing to teams that were not like, he would lose to the Warriors. He'd lose to LeBron. He'd lose to whoever.
I don't know, man. In those last couple of years when they were only going small lineups with 3-point shooters, Capella was gone. They didn't really have anybody in the front court, and it was just them taking turns hucking threes. I think you're getting ahead of yourself, honestly. I think you're assuming this is more of a red flag than it is. And I think we take it day by day. But right now, my concern is getting Durant and Joe Harris back on the floor as quickly as possible, so we can have our full strength team. And I disagree that Joe isn't going to be a factor. Patty Mills has stepped up significantly. With that said, in an ideal situation, Joe Harris is getting more minutes than Mills. He's more of a reliable scorer than Mills throughout his career. So let's see if that comes to fruition. If Harris comes back, he shoots sub 40 from three, Mills is going to take the time. But why are we assuming that's the case? We love Joe Harris. He's the best 3-point shooter in the league a couple of years ago. And let's give him credit where it's due. And we'll give him, we'll stay optimistic. I know his playoff runs haven't been great, but I don't think it's safe to say he's going to hit the bench when he comes back. And I don't think it's safe to say.
I said less than 50%. I didn't say hit the bench.
So let's take it day by day, but let's keep going. We got other games to get to.
A few Kyrie Irving quotes that just came across my desk. You ready?
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving says, in regards to KD getting hurt, for me personally, it's a big hit. You feel it energetically. We just gotta get back in the swing, and now we just got back in the swing, and now one of our guys is out. He goes on to say, you can't replace Kevin. It's impossible. It's a big blow. So Kyrie talking about his teammate. The other thing he said, they asked him whether Nets injuries will dictate his stance on COVID-19 or getting the vaccine. Kyrie said, I'm not bringing science into the game of basketball. So I'll let you respond to that one real quick. What do you think of that?
Honestly, I watched him against the Cavs today, and I thought whatever he does off the court, I don't care at this point as long as he keeps scoring on the court. So
27 points today on
he looked good, man. He looked
pretty damn good. 12 of 23 from the field, 9 assists. He had a good day.
I turned to my buddies and just said, I'm glad he's on the floor. So I'm done criticizing. If he, I think he's done being criticized, and let's just play basketball.
All right, and then finally, last Kyrie quote. On the Nets, big three finally getting on the court together. Our time is coming. It may not be now, but I definitely feel like some of these things are happening for a reason. See, that is sort of where I hold out hope too. Like, eventually, you'll get the big three on the court, and hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, whatever superstition you want to abide by, hopefully, they are able to be healthy in the playoffs. Now, the thing that's troubling, Nick, is this season feels a lot like last season. It really does. We had the big three post January last year, right? They made the Harden trade in December or January or whatever. So we had James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant from January till May. But we had the KD injury, we had the Kyrie Irving absent stuff, and then you had the Harden hamstring thing. And unfortunately, that is the way this season is looking. So I need you to sort of tell me that what Kyrie's saying, basically, it's going to happen. These things are happening now, but by the time we all are healthy, everything will be copacetic. Do you think that that's something that, Nets fans can believe in?
Absolutely, I do. Listen, KD's injury is awful timing. It's so unfortunate. You're right. It kind of just piles onto last year with all this mishaps, all this bad timing, all these unfortunate accidents that on a lot of other teams just don't happen health-wise. Obviously, Klay Thompson, one of the worst situations that Warriors team's taken a couple years to recover. So glad he's back. But some of our competitors haven't had been much luckier. The Bucks, part of the reason the Bucks were able to go all the way to the end is because they stayed healthy. Besides, obviously, DiVincenzo. Right. And they had their superstars healthy. So, listen, I'm optimistic that once KD's back, Kyrie gets a little more warmed up. Our continuity, like you said, our chemistry keeps improving over the next few months. Listen, all we got to do is linger around that 3 to 5 playoff spot, and I like our odds. Right now, if this locked in, we play the Cavs first round. They're a game behind us, and I'm fully okay with that in a 4-game series, just 7-game series. We win probably 4-1, 4-2 if the Cavs play out of their mind, as long as we got our guys healthy and our superstars playing. So obviously those are big caveats, but no, I'm optimistic, dude. We lost a close game today to a solid team. I know in the past it would have been like, shit, the Cavs beat us. The Cavs are solid this year, dude. They're 27-18. We're only 27-16. So let's take it with a grain of salt. Let's get better, and let's still be optimistic for the future.
All right, Nick. That is a great segue. We're going to go all the way back to Wednesday. You know how we do it. We talk about the latest game, which was the Cavs game. We're going to go all the way back to the last game we didn't discuss on last week's podcast, and that was the Wednesday night game against the Chicago Bulls. The Nets were coming off a brutal loss to the Trailblazers on Monday night. They had 2 days of rest, and then they played the Bulls on Wednesday night, and they beat the Bulls 138-112. The Bulls came into this game looking to make a statement, and the statement was made by the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant was phenomenal in this one, 27 points in 30 minutes. He had 9 assists to pair with that. James Harden, 25 points, 16 assists for Harden. When Harden plays like that, the Nets, and obviously you get around 30 from KD, the Nets are virtually unstoppable. You add in 21 points from Patty Mills, who had Patty Mills had 6 3-pointers in that game. And then you add 20 points from the rookie Deron Sharp, easily his best game as a pro, 10 of 14 from the field, 7 rebounds for Deron. And the Nets ran away with this thing. I mean, this was a close game for the most part. The third quarter was really where the Nets pulled away, 39-19 in that third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, essentially, the Nets put up another 37, so the game was over. Great job defensively by Kessler Edwards. He only had 9 points in this game, but he was a tenacious defender when it came to having to guard DeRozan, Levine. He made life relatively hard for DeRozan, who finished with 19 points on 7 of 16 from the field. Very good game for the Nets. Deron Sharp had a great game defensively. He had to play Vucevic for most of the night. Vucevic only scored 14 for the Bulls. The Nets shot the ball, Nick, 56% from the field, 53% from 3, and they only got 9 points from Kyrie Irving. That was all they needed. The other 3 guys scored 20 plus, and no other net was in double figure, but every single net that played got at least 2 points. So this was just, for all the Nets fans feeling crappy about the Kevin Durant injury, this is what the Nets look like when the big 3 are out on the court together.
This is the best game of the season. You were texting me during this, this is the greatest game we've put together. This is all 3 superstars playing fantastically. We put 138 up on the number 1 team in the East. Some people would argue one of the best teams in the league, a top 3 team in the league. Obviously, the West is looking a little more competitive and has a lot more 30-win teams than we do, but the Bulls are nice, man, with DeRozan, Levine, and Vucevic. So this was the best game of the season, and I'll read you some stats that stand out to me. You said the 56 from the field, beating the Bulls 46. You said the 53% from 3, which is insane compared to a 36% from the Bulls. But what I love is out-rebounding them, 41-35, out-assisting them 35-22. That's plus 13 in assists. Out-stealing them by 6, 11-5. And then this is huge because I talk about turnovers every week. We average 14 to 15 turnovers a game. Less than 10. less than 10 turnovers. We finished with 9 turnovers in this game to the Bulls 17. So this, to me, I don't want to say it, but is a perfect game for the Nets. Obviously, there's always things we can improve on, but beating the number one team in our conference by 26 points, 138 to 112. With that, it's not even like they were missing anybody really. They had everybody they play with. Just Dasonmu, who's a great guy off the bench, didn't do well for them. McKinney, who gets good minutes. Kobe White, 16. Lonzo Ball, not too bad. I mean, these numbers from these guys are average. We just outplayed everybody on their team, and we had probably the most efficient game we had of the season and the most exciting game we had of the season, just to watch us crush the team that's kind of keeping us back from first place right now.
No LaMarcus Aldridge, no Nick Claxton, no Joe Harris again in that game. And that was a huge win for the Nets because there was a narrative that the Nets couldn't beat the elite teams. I think they were like 0-8 against the top 4 teams in each conference or something along those lines. But good on the Nets to sort of disprove that narrative, at least for a night, that, hey, when the big three are together and they're playing healthy and we have, the thing I love about Sharp, he's a competent enough big man that he's able to make an impact playing with James Harden and Kevin Durant. Kessler Edwards is a competent enough wingman to make the right plays where he could stand out and make a few defensive plays. And then that the most impressive signature play from that game, right? Before I even bring it up, that Bulls game.
No, tell me.
It was the double dive. It was, I think it was DeAndre Bembry or Patty Mills. One of those guys hit the floor, got it, passed it up. Then Blake Griffin hit the floor. He passed it up. And then it was a dunk by Kessler Edwards at the end. But that's the kind of energy that you love to see the Nets play with. And when the big three are on the court, more times than not, you get that energy. But that was an awesome. I forgot who was part of the double dive. I know Blake Griffin, because Blake Griffin's the diving master. It was either Bembry or I think it was Mills, maybe was the other diver. But just an awesome play.
Should we get to this Thunder game?
Yeah, let's get to the Thunder game. You were at this game. This was on Thursday night, I believe.
I can tell you everything you need to know about this game.
They lost this game, by the way, in case you were wondering. What was the score?
130 to 109 Thunder. I'll tell you everything you need to know about this game. Obviously, no KD, no
Right.
Irving because it was a home game. KD was on a rest night. He wasn't hurt yet. We'll get to that. KD was on rest. So our lineup to start was Kessler Edwards, Bembry, Deron Sharp, James Harden, and I think Bruce Brown was that fifth guy.
Not a ton of shooting in that starting lineup, Nick.
Not a ton of shooting. Deron Sharp being our only big man. But let me tell you something. This game was all about, and I hate to say it, the combination of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort of OKC. I had never really seen Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's game, SGA. He is nice, dude. Now, he scored 16 straight points in the first quarter at one point. No, and they switched on him like 3 different times. It was Harden on him at one point. It was Duke on him at one point. It was Bruce Brown on him at one point. He breezed by everybody. So this game was a combination of a weak, shallow Nets team shooting 40% from the field, I believe 20% from 3. The Thunder shooting 50% from the field, 45% from 3. But SGA 33 points, 10 and 9, almost triple double. Lou Dort could not miss. 27 points. I've never seen Lou Dort shoot threes that were so knocked down. Josh Giddey, was he 19 years old from Australia? 19 points. And Mike Muscala, the vet from Bucknell, 4 for 4 from 3 for this Thunder team. So I'm not making excuses. We got outplayed. We got outshot. We got outstarred by SJ and Lou Dort. We were missing some of our best players. We went very small and very young throughout this entire game. I was actually disappointed Deron Sharp only had 20 minutes. I thought he should have played a lot more given the rebounds and the second chance opportunities he was putting when he was on the court. So overall, ugly game. I thought Bruce Brown, too, and I called you after this game. Why is Javon Carter getting minutes over Bruce Brown? Javon Carter and Bruce Brown basically split. Bruce 27, Javon 25. But if you just look at their style of play, I said to you, Javon Carter must be knocking down trays like butter in practice because Nash gives him a green light to unleash every time.
I think it's different. I think he has some sort of blackmail on Steve Nash, and if he doesn't at least get up like 3 to 4 shots a game, no matter what, he's going to release that blackmail to the public. Obviously, I'm joking, but there's absolutely no reason why Javon Carter should see the court during any competitive game. I don't care how many players were down. The man has terrible basketball IQ. He has such a bad touch. He gets in there and he's going to make 1 or 2 because he's going to put up 10 and he's going to shoot 20% from the field because that's what he does. He's an awful basketball player. I don't understand why he gets minutes. Cam Thomas had 21 points in this game. He's been able to sort of showcase his skills when the Nets are down guys, which is why I thought he'd get a little bit more action and be a little bit more productive against the Cavs today. He wasn't. But the one thing I want to say about this game, Nick, James Harden, 26 points, 9 assists. He was 7 of 22 from the field, 3 of 11 from 3. Maybe my expectations for James Harden are ridiculous, but I remember, and I bring up this game, on numerous podcasts that we do, because I think it's important. Last year, James Harden against the Phoenix Suns had a game where the second best player on the court was Tyler Johnson. And they had no business beating a Suns team that would eventually go to the finals. And James Harden said, I'm going to put the team on my back and win this game. And he did. And I haven't seen that James Harden yet. Yeah, I know we saw him perform well against the Bulls. He was electric in those wins against the Clippers and the Lakers when the Nets were on the road. He was awesome in those games. For some reason, that was probably outside of Chicago. The best I've seen Harden all year was in those games in the Staples Center, wherever the Clippers and the Lakers play. I think it's still the Staples Center. But
no, it's not. It's crypto.com.
Crypto.com, yeah. But I just, these are the games where I think that Harden is just going to have like a 40 burger, and he doesn't. And it drives me nuts because I don't know if we're ever going to see that James Harden again. And I hate to be this critical.
Dude, they were like double and tripling him because they had no one else on the Nets team who could score.
I get it. You're right. But yeah, Cam Thomas, James Harden with 26, Thomas 21. David Duke Jr. had 13. I think a lot of that came in garbage time. And then Bruce Brown with 10. Those are the only Nets players in double figures. On the defensive side, the Thunder scored 30 plus in every single quarter. You can't have that if you're the Nets. You just can't have that. The Nets made it sort of a little bit closer in that third quarter. They put up 32 to the Thunder's 30, but they couldn't get any closer in the fourth. We can move on. Not much to say about this game. I think you hit all the talking points on the Thunder. But
last thing I want to say is we were down 20 plus in the first half, came back and cut it to 8. I want to say about halfway through the fourth quarter, maybe with about 6 or 7 minutes left. Thunder called a timeout, put SGA back in, put Giddy back in, whoever it was, and then just we're hitting all their shots. We kept trying to fight back. Obviously, we weren't shooting well. We did have a shot at this game, carried by Harden. Edwards hit some big shots. So it was tough to watch this because the whole time you knew we just needed to shoot better and we can creep back in. Obviously, that sounds silly and cliche. It's basketball. Of course, you just shoot better, put the ball in the hoop more. But this was just the Thunder having one of the best shooting games of probably their season compared to us, who was just on the lower end, missing a lot of our guys. So I hate to be the guy who has excuses after a loss. Like, we should have won, obviously. We're a more talented team. But this game, the Cavs game, I'm seeing a lot of guys step up from these young teams. And like you're saying, why isn't Harden doing that? It's because we don't need Harden to do that sometimes. We need guys like Kessler Edwards. We need guys like David Duke, Cam Thomas to hit those big shots as well. I think Kessler Edwards had a chance in this game to cut it to 5 and airball to 3. Listen, it's a big shot. I'm not expecting him to make it right now. But down the line, these are the guys that these other teams have that we're going to need to hit big shots.
You want to get into this Pelicans game? I mean, this was a win on Saturday, 120-105. This is the game that Kevin Durant got hurt in. We'll start with that injury. I mean, when it happened, basically – it was a drive by Herb Jones. He went into Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown took a few steps back, sort of into Kevin Durant. I saw Bruce Brown's arm hit Kevin Durant's knee. That essentially forced Kevin Durant. He tested out his knee, couldn't play anymore. Left the court, went straight to the locker room. Turned out he sprained his MCL, and he will be out 4 to 6 weeks. But Steve Nash, even in the pregame press conference before the Cavs game, said he really doesn't have a legitimate timetable on Kevin Durant yet. So that was the takeaway from this game. I mean, outside of that, the Nets played phenomenally. 32 and 37 in the first 2 quarters, respectively. The Pelicans beat us in the final 2 quarters, but it wasn't enough. The Nets had a lot of guys in double figures. Patty Mills had 21 in this game. Cam Thomas with 20. Cam Thomas actually had a really good sort of first 3 quarters where he was hitting some big shots. James Harden, 27 points, 15 assists in this one. Deron sharp, 12 points, 10 rebounds. Durant had 12 before he exited. He was on his way to probably a 30-plus point night. And then Kessler Edwards added 16 points and 6 rebounds. So everything was clicking for the Nets outside of that KD injury. The Pelicans, one of the worst teams in the league, they're sitting at 16-27. Brandon Ingram was the high man for them with 22 points and 8 assists. But yeah, this was a good, I guess, comeback win for the Nets after they had lost to the Thunder. They came back strong in this one. They were never really down in this one. This one was a wire-to-wire victory for Brooklyn. But good win. But obviously, the main takeaway is the KD injury.
Yeah, this just seemed pretty comfortable the entire game. I was never really worried. You covered it all. The biggest thing is the Durant. I think everyone was terrified. Blessing in disguise that it wasn't as bad. It wasn't an ACL, but it's rough, obviously, considering Kyrie just started playing. We just saw the potential against the Bulls. We don't need to dwell on it. According to Woj yesterday, 4 to 6 week rehab. So, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's only 4 to 6. I know Joe Harris was supposed to be 6 to 8. It's already been past 8, I think, and there's no timetable for Joe Harris. So you like to think these estimations for a return are accurate, but obviously he needs to feel healthy and get back to the way he was to step back on the court. So wishing KD a speedy recovery for his sake, for Nets fan base sake, and we'll see what happens. But good win against the Pelicans. He went out mid-second, and we still dominated. So that's a good sign.
So something I want to say real quick, and we're going to pretty much end the pod in a little bit, but Kyrie Irving, I don't think I mentioned this quote. They asked him whether or not Kevin Durant's injury will impact him getting the vaccine. Did I read this quote before? Did it change his stance?
I don't believe you said it.
I think I might have, but basically he said that he's made his decision and he's staying pat. And and he's standing by his decision. And this comes a few days after the Bulls, that Bulls win, where after the press conference, James Harden made a joke. He said, man, I'm going to give Kyrie Irving the vaccine. I'm going to give him the shot. So with the Kevin Durant injury, and now you have this sort of weird narrative where I think a lot of people keep thinking that Kyrie's going to change his mind and he's going to do what he can to help this team out. Kyrie pretty much laid that to rest today. He said, put that to bed. He said, I'm not going to get the vaccine. I made my decision. And with Harden saying his thing a few days ago, do you think that maybe that is something that is weighing on Harden's mind when he talks about potentially relocating and playing for a team that isn't the Brooklyn Nets?
I don't think so. I think Harden's in his own world. I think he's just a different guy who's chasing a championship. I don't think he's taking a lot of these factors into consideration. I mean, obviously it'll have an effect if some of these guys aren't playing, if some of these guys are too injured, if they're not coming back. But I don't know. I don't want to believe there's some sort of conspiracy that this Nets organization is it's a lot more tense. There's a lot of, there might be some backstabbing going on.
It is tense because the post-game press conferences have been pretty tense with losses where they ask Kyrie about it. Because they're going to grill him. They're going to be like, hey, Kyrie, you're going to get the vaccine now that you guys are struggling. That you don't.
But KD and Harden have been nothing but supportive of. They were so excited to have him back.
Kevin Durant, yes, from a basketball perspective, Kevin Durant has spoken about how he is respectful of Kyrie's decision and how he's not going to make him do anything or he's not going to try to persuade him one way or the other. Harden hasn't said those same things. The relationship between Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving is different than the relationship with James Harden and Kyrie Irving. It just is. So you might not be concerned about it. I am a little bit. I am a little concerned about it. Nets fans, we like to think that just because we have 3 of the top 10 players in the world, we're in this sort of safe place that, we're going to get to the playoffs. We're going to be a 1 to 3 seed. We're going to be all right. But these things can rattle a team. These things can sort of change the way a team finishes out the season. And the fact that we all think at one point Kyrie Irving will play home games at Barclays. And he is basically adamant in saying the one avenue that I have to doing that, I haven't even considered. So it is a little troubling for me.
Understood. You make some valid points. There's just so many things up in the air. Obviously, Nets Twitter, SB Nation, Bleacher Report, there's just so much shit every day that pops up. You don't know what to believe. So I think only time will tell. I think that Bulls game was a great sign. Obviously, it's been a little downhill since then, but we've kind of seen the mountaintop, and I'd like to assume that we'll get there again. So I kind of push everything into my little closet, and I don't want to worry about it for now.
All right, and there you have it. This was another episode of Fireside Nets with Spen and Nick, brought to you by Empire Sports Media, episode 94. If any of you guys were watching this and wondering what the beer I was drinking was today, it was a Coors Light Silver Bullet. I only drink them when the mountains are blue. Shout out to Coors Light. They are not an official sponsor. If you're wondering what Nick was holding up earlier, he was holding up a Slate chocolate milk container that he keeps his.
It's like a travel thing.
Travel mug that he keeps his Slate chocolate milk in. Slate, also not an official sponsor, but if you guys are interested in learning more about Slate, Nick actually works for Slate Milk, and he would be more than happy to share information with you guys about the closest stores that you can get Slate milk. It's a lactose-free chocolate milk, and by God, Nick, it's delicious.
Well, we like to call it a high-protein chocolate milk. Lactose-free is just a secondary good part of the chocolate milk, secondary attribute, but it's 20 grams of protein, 0 grams of added sugar. It's delicious. There's a caffeinated flavor as well. It's in every Whole Foods in the Northeast and North Atlantic. It is in ShopRite. It is in King's Balducci's, in most of your primary retailers. So I'd check it out.
Great. Sounds good. Any final words for our listeners before we end the show?
Go Rams.
Go Rams. All right. And by the way, if you're listening to this Tuesday, that game has already happened.
And the Rams won.
And the Rams either won or lost.
I'm gonna give a guess. This is gonna be right. Rams 31-27.
I'm actually gonna pick against you. I think the Cardinals take it.
You're stupid.
And we're not doing a song anymore. We're just gonna go back to the original, Catch You on the Fireside, because I think that's the way that you got to do it. The song was a good idea, but Nick, let's end it. 1, 2, 3. Catch you on the fireside.
It's really hard to do it together when there's definitely a delay. All right, see ya.